Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval Creed. Today we will be reviewing the next part of the Leyte Gulf World Mission, and that is going to be, let's see, 3-3, the Sibuyan Sea. Now, we did have a defeat yesterday in the Battle of Samar, but out of all of the 16 world missions, Battle of Samar is the second hardest of them all combined. The top hardest being 4-4 Battle of Midway. So if you don't pass Battle Samar on the first try, don't feel too bad. It's really one of the hardest ones in the game. However, the Sibuyan Sea, let's take a look to see what we have. On our side, we have an Essex, a Lexington, 4 North Carolinas, 4 Clevelands, and a bunch of Fletchers. And we are facing off against a Shikaku, a Shoho, 2 Yamatos, a Nagato, 2 Congos, and a Takao, 2 Mogamis, 2 Tones, Myokos, 2 of them, 2 Aganos, and a bunch of Kageros and Fubukis. And that was last time I played it, that's what I documented. So we'll double check to see if that still follows through. It should still be the same. But you can see how we do have quite a few battleships, but we're still outnumbered. And even though we have 2 fleet carriers and they only have 1 fleet carrier and 1 light carrier, that still means they have a carrier. And you don't mess with Shikakus. Alright, so I narrowed it down to 3 ships I wanted to try for these last 2 missions for Leyte Gulf. That one being Bismarck, the other being Gascogne, and the last being North Carolina. I really wanted to do Gascogne, however, I don't think she's going to work well. So I'm going to use Bismarck today, and then I'm going to try and do North Carolina tomorrow because we get even more air power to deal with once we do 3-4, the Philippine Sea. That being said, why Bismarck, you ask? Well, because she has really good armor. She has secondaries to deal with all the smaller destroyers and some of the light cruisers like the Aganos. She has good 15s for the armor piercing for heavy cruisers and the battleships themselves. And though her anti-aircraft defenses are not the best, I would think that they are suitable for at least what we're going up against today. That doesn't mean we'll be able to knock down every plane out of the sky that attacks us, but we at least have a pretty decent chance of doing some damage to the air groups. Also, she comes with the hydroacoustic search. She is the second battleship. Actually, no, she is the first one to get it in the German tech tree line because Gneisenau does not get it. So we now have access to the hydroacoustic search consumable on the battleships, not just the cruisers, or in this case, destroyers as well. And that will help us plenty when we are hunting down these smaller ships. So without further ado, let's toss into a game and see what we can do. And let's see the Sibuyan Sea. Here we are. So in Essex, Lexington, it says South Dakotas, but they're modeled by North Carolinas. You also have 4 Clevelands, some Fletchers. We've already gone through this, but you can still see quite the strong force. 20 versus 27. Not the biggest lead, honestly. And honestly, if we go firepower, we overpower them in carriers, about equal in battleships. They definitely outnumber us in cruisers, and definitely, actually it's about even for destroyers, I would say. Alright, but enough about that. Let's start getting a move on. So I'm going to focus on the heavy cruisers with my main 15-inch guns, and try and use my secondaries as much as possible to take on the smaller destroyers. Alright, so how is our lineup split? We have a line of destroyers on that side, we have our battleship group, our light cruiser group, and another set of destroyers, and another set of destroyers up here. Alright, so we already have eyes on the first destroyer. And the battleships are over there. Okay. Well, there's 2 ways I could do this now. I could go left with the light cruisers, and do what I can to keep them alive, or I can head this way with the battleships and keep myself alive. Alright, I'm going to try... Actually, let's slow down to half speed here and see if we can get some long-range pot shots on these cruisers. Bismarck is not exactly known for her accuracy, nor is really any German battleship, but she does have her moments that it does shine, and it's not so bad that you can't shoot at all. You just may not be as accurate as some other ships. Okay, so we're getting some good citadels on some of these Mogamis here. Our secondaries are starting to open up on these destroyers as they come across the island here. So hopefully we'll be able to handle those for the time being. I do have my Bismarck fully spec'd for secondary build. So my secondaries are shooting out to over 8 kilometers out. I don't actually know what their range is fully. But they're just going to keep working on those destroyers. Awesome, double strike, cool. So I'm actually pretty satisfied with where I am right now. We're nose into the battleships, so they can't really do that much damage to me. Our secondaries are working up on any destroyer that gets too close, and we have enough accuracy to work on these cruisers at longer ranges. I am kind of hesitant about torpedoes, but we do have this island in front of me that does kind of help with that. But I will want to pop my hydroacoustic search soon, since I am at a standstill. Alright, actually let's just pop it now. There goes another cruiser. Now I originally didn't want to bring Bismarck out when I did these world missions because I feel like German battleships are meant for these missions, honestly. If you ignore the part about the carriers, these ships are made to just tangle with lighter ships and cruisers and destroyers and battleships. And they do it extremely well. It's almost too easy. But if you put enough targets, it can sometimes be a challenge. And especially if you put a carrier in there, then you definitely have a challenge. Alright, speaking of, there is a carrier in this game. There's actually 2 of them, but I haven't seen any kind of hide or hair of them. I did see the original strike at the beginning of the match against some of the forward destroyer force, but nothing since then. And we're just slowly picking off these cruisers one by one. Our hydro is about to go down, however, but our battleships are coming up behind us. So that'll be nice, so we can get right back into the battleship line in a minute. Just send some parting salvos towards this Agano. I'm not really sure how effective 15s will be against her. She's pretty much made out of nothing. So our secondaries are going to have a little bit more fun with her while she's still in range. Which is... she's at 9.6 kilometers and I'm still opening up. So maybe my range for my secondaries is like 10 something. Because they're still shooting. Alright, so I think that's all we're going to get out of that position. So let's move on and pick up any of these stragglers that escaped me. Let's see, what battleships are we running into? Ayama, Nagato, and I think that might be it actually. Right now I'm not in a Tirpitz, so I can't just rush in with torpedoes, unfortunately. But we're still going to work all of these ships over with our 15s, and once they get a little bit closer, our secondaries as well. but I don't necessarily want to be too close to them and become the main focus, because that's a lot of firepower, and every single one of these battleships has bigger guns than me. And even though I have good armor, that doesn't mean I can take chunk damage extremely well. Damage is still damage, it'll still hurt. Alright, so we're kind of coming in on a converging course here. We're slowly getting closer, but I have this chance to do some long-range damage against this Nagato. I don't know if that's the right target to focus on right now, but it's the one that I'm going to focus on. Alright, let's see if we can finish her up. We're gonna actually need to get in a little bit closer. We're still not in secondary range yet. Though I will drop down to about 3/4 to try and stay with the group. Oh, the carrier is coming in as well. Alright, well, I'm not in a position to screen to try and take out any aircraft right now. So we're going to have to use this moment to take out all, or a good portion of these battleships while we can. Alright, we should be close enough to secondary range. There we go. Yep, 10 kilometers is my secondary range. And let's send some love downrange. Because once these battleships are gone, we can start mopping up the rest of these. I'm not quite sure how effective my secondaries are actually on this Yamato. They're just kind of shattering, I feel. Yeah, they're not doing anything. Alright, cool. My main guns, however, are having no problem citadeling this Yama. So it looks like my other battleships are shooting the Nagato, which is fine with me. I can work on the Yamas. Since they're so close, I'm getting easy broadside citadels here. Or at least once in a while. And then if they finish off the Nagato, that just means I'm free to go head back north and deal with the rest of the fleet. Be nice to get a fire. Would not complain about a fire. But no fire, we'll just have to sink you the old-fashioned way. Right there, we still have both of our fleet carriers, so that will definitely help us. It looks like they're going to work over the Congo over there. And against the Essex and a Lexington, that ship is as good as gone. Just give it enough time. Alright, so it looks like we're not able to deal with the Nagato yet. So let's send a few more shells her way. Alright, yep, there goes the Congo. Didn't take very long at all. And our team battleships are actually heading back to the north. So that leaves us alone against these ships right now. Which may mean we might be focused on in a second. So let's take the advantage. Ooh, there we go. Now we have a fire of them not shooting at us. And try and get some more citadels. Yep, I'll take that. Oh, but you are now looking at me, so it is time to move. Alright, no citadel in that one. So we're just going to head back to the northeast, trying to keep a good angle, and we're going to start just picking away at these ships. We're out of secondary range, but that's fine. We actually do outnumber. Ooh, they're not shooting at me yet. The enemy fleet 12 to 11. It's not a big gap, and it probably won't last, but it is at least something. And I actually kind of want to switch to high explosive at this point because my shells are just not doing anything to these ships. You know, let's do it. Switching to high explosive. We have really, really good armor penetrating damage on our high explosive shells, such as the same for all German battleships. So let's see if we can put that to use here. I don't usually use high explosive because I'm usually close enough to use my secondaries to light fires. But in this case, I'm trying to use a little bit of caution this time. There we go. Now we have a fire. Oof. But those 18-inch shells definitely do hurt. Be nice to try and have the team take out the carriers for me while I'm dealing with the battleships. Though it looks like the carrier is actually going to work on these battleships for me. That's fine. Let's see if we can get a little bit more damage. Maybe another fire. And let's rejoin our battleship group and see if we can work on the remaining carriers and destroyers that are now all that's left. So versus the Battle of Samar, this one's not that hard at all. You just need to stay with your team. So for the earlier missions, I was kind of going solo and just wiping the floor with everyone else. The higher world mission tier you go, starting at right about now, honestly, you want to start staying with your team and trying to protect them as much as you can. They may be bots, but I mean, battleships are battleships. Even though they don't hit as often, you'll still be able to do a lot of damage with the 16-inch guns that they have. And especially their anti-aircraft defense. 4 battleships is a lot better than just one. Okay, so let's pop a heal while we're en route to try and help out our team. No idea where all these other destroyers are. Hopefully they're over here hugging the border with the 2 carriers as well, or at least one of the carriers. If we can get eyes on one of these ships, our friendly carriers will launch aircraft to go attack them, but while they do that, they'll also be spotting, so we can see, yep, if any of the other ships are over there. In this case, they are. I still have high explosive loaded to try and light a fire on one of these carriers here. No fire though. Alright, let's put our fighter up. We were saving it until this moment. So as you can see, our friendly carriers are now launching strikes now that they have a target to attack. And while they're over the target, they'll be able to spot for other ships as well. Alright, we're going to switch back to armor piercing. Maybe we can Citadel her a little bit easier since fires seem to not want to be set today. We destroyed an engine on something though. It's too close together to see if it was actually a destroyer or not. See, yep, spotted the other carrier. Actually, this carrier is very susceptible to high explosive, so we are now going to go have fun with that. And it looks like some of these destroyers might be soaking up some torpedoes here in a moment. Let's send some more high explosive this way. Our secondaries are actually about to open up on this poor ship, so she will not last very long. She did get a flooding from the torpedoes, but it doesn't matter as she's about to be sunk. This destroyer has 1 HP left. Alright, the secondaries are now opening up. Let's pop a hydro. We're not really close enough to detect enemy ships yet, but we can at least detect torpedoes if they start launching them. We are in a kind of position where they can still launch torpedoes. Doink doink. There goes the last carrier. Now there's only 5 destroyers. Honestly, I probably could have done this with Gascogna. Oh well. Alright, Igumo. You're going down, so let's switch to this one. And I see you over there. So that's where we will have to head next. Our fighter was shot down though, so let's put that back in the air. And this time when we go engage these destroyers, we will not have a hydroacoustic search. But that's okay because our entire battleship line is just about to land right on top of these destroyers. I do think they'll be able to take out the... Yep, that one. But there's still 2 more battleships coming up on the rear with the destroyer, and then I'm coming up as well. So between that, it should be a win. But not with that accuracy. Got 1 hit. I'll take it. Yeah, so pretty straightforward battle. Not that hard at all. There goes 1. Right, now there's just the 2 left here. Slowly getting damage on them. We're actually about to get into secondary range, so let's turn a little bit. Because I know our secondaries can hit even if our mains are having trouble. There goes 1 of them. And the last destroyer will probably go down to my secondaries here. There we go. Alright, so let's see how we did today with, was it the Sibuyan 3-3? 634,000 damage, 16 ships sunk, 204 main shell hits, 7 aircraft shot down, 19 citadels, 17 fires, 1 module destroyed, and 629 secondary armor hits. High explosive from the 15s did 53,000 damage. Armor piercing did 418,000 damage. Fires did 58,000 damage, and secondary battery did 104,000 damage. Those secondaries are a godsend in games like this. Literally, if you just take German battleships for every single world mission, most of the time that'll actually get you to an almost victory. If it's a game without any carrier, then I can guarantee you victory for the most part. But if you do have a carrier, then that throws a wrench in the works because German battleships don't really have that much AA defense. Or at least not enough to protect themselves adequately. German cruisers are better at that. But yeah, that finishes up the video today. Join me tomorrow while we go over the final world mission for Leyte Gulf, the Philippine Sea. So again, thank you and take care.